Hello again, everyone. I'm David Barrick. I head up our pricing solutions practice for Antuit AI, and I'm actually joined by my colleague Yogesh Kulkarni, who heads up our marketing and pricing analytics practice. At Antuit AI, we are a leading provider of analytically driven solutions for retail, for deep analytics, for machine learning, and for artificial intelligence solutions that cover forecasting, pricing, inventory management, and other such solutions and applications, not only to fashion and specialty and department store retailers, but CPG and really all areas of retail. Soon after the sales disruption from store closures, it became important for our customers to think about how to manage the inventory effects of stores being closed. Retailers really have had to think about their inventory in terms of four key factors. First, obviously, how much inventory not only do they have now, but will they have with the resumption of store opening and resumption of demand. Secondly, is to think about how saleable the inventory will be. And then, of course, how to manage down the inventory levels, given that sales have allowed inventory to rise. And what pricing and inventory management strategies are needed to help them do this. So we realized that with our capabilities and experience, we developed the retail inventory simulator to help in this problem by first understanding the weeks left to sell, the magnitude of the inventory remaining, and the cost of the inventory repricing needed. Secondly, it's clear that it is implicit to prioritize the need for pricing or other type of management of the inventory. Few retailers could or even should spend the time and dollars necessary to, for instance, reprice all their inventory immediately based on current patterns. And third, given the unknowns of future conditions, we needed to be able to provide the ability to run scenarios or simulations against the many different possible assumptions related to business resumption. And the need for this type of detailed analysis comes exactly at a time when in many organizations, analysts are not available to do this work, either because they're not currently working or that they're tied up with other tasks. And doubly, when it's at the same time that many current analytic and forecasting tools that a lot of folks use are simply not useful because of the unprecedented demand patterns that we currently see. So the inventory simulator, which I'm showing a front page of here, provides key information at a glance. This screen shows the inventory ownership priority ranked against the key measures of inventory liability as of a set of store reopening dates. At the number 1 circle, you'll see sort of in the middle of the screen, we have two measures, the first being the average weeks left to sell at store reopening. And this measures how much natural selling life remains on any given product. For the negatives, for example, that you can see on the screen there, mean that we're already past the natural end of selling life for the products involved in this area. And together, that average weeks to sell really defines the urgency of actions needed. Immediately to the right of that column is the average sell-through gap, which computes how behind the expected unit sell-through rate we will be at the store reopening. And that helps define essentially the magnitude of the inventory issue that you have. Going to the right at the number 2 circle, the third component here is the estimated inventory discount needed is shown. Whether as a markdown or a promotional price change or other inventory adjustment, this is the cost of addressing the inventory overage and the inventory issues that you have. Together, these measures of urgency, magnitude, and cost make up the prioritization. But as you can see, this prioritization can be adjusted, as shown in the little number 3 circle up above, based on the desired strategy for any given scenario. The weightings can be adjusted and rerun for the prioritizations. And the reality is for many, if not most retailers, there's a limit financially to what type of repricing can be accomplished as a solve to the inventory problems. And that's where you see above that, the number 4 circle, an input in terms of the markdown or repricing budget figure uses the priority established in step 3 to allow guidance on where pricing action dollars should be best spent. Of course, with this is just at the top level. You can drill down into much more detailed views, as shown as some of the links we show in the number 5 circle. You can toggle between product and receipt views, as well as drill down by product area and even age of inventory attributes. Naturally, all these results are dependent on the assumptions going in. In this view, we show really the variables that make up the scenarios. These scenarios can be saved, edited, rerun on demand. In the number 1 circle on this screen, you can see key store assumptions by store group, a store group being definable as needed, usually based on such criteria as open date, location, such as city or state, type of store, or size of store, etc. Opening dates for each of these store groups are adjustable as well, right within the simulation. And also adjustable is how fast any given group of stores will return to the new normal of demand. And you can see that under ramp-up pattern. And that ramp-up pattern takes advantage of any learnings that we've had from any stores, whether it be reopenings in Asia, in Europe, or in North America as we experience those. Finally, what the new normal is, as shown by the permanent demand dampening by stores, we all know that it will take a long time for stores to reset to the levels that they were before the crisis, and you can kind of handicap the demand based on that permanent store demand factor. Similarly, you'll see that key assumptions on the product side, over to the right panel under department settings, include an incremental demand dampening by overall department, an impact in terms of the expected customer response to price, and ultimately what sell-through goal is reasonable to pursue by product area. All of these factors are applied against the historically derived models to build a view of performance and expectation around how to best manage inventory, price, and demand coming into the resumption of store operations. There's a lot of detail under here that, of course, we don't have time to go into here, but you can get a high-level view for how the simulator works. And now, Yogesh.
We're right about time. So I do want to ask a question. Maybe you can fold in some of the information from this. You know, I think what would be really interesting is kind of what this implementation question I think would be great to answer. And I think the second question that would be really interesting to answer from what you guys can see is how predictive were your historical models, and then kind of the new normal, you know, how quickly does your product address kind of these new patterns?
Absolutely. So real quick on the first question, as you can see what's up here, very simple 2-week process to get going. We do take historical data and some business rules in the first week. We build the simulations and behind the scene profiles, and then with that, by the end of 2 weeks, the simulation is up and able to be run for all the scenarios you want. In terms of predictive analytics, one of the things that this does different than a number of the features is it does use much more of a reliance on historical profiling in order to produce essentially a comparison for what current activities are against what a normalized set of activities would be. And the point of the simulation is to ask the question, how would things be different if I was at a kind of historically normalized present situation than where they are now? So you can kind of see what the delta is.
And to add to David's point very quickly, I think we are learning quickly from other geographies and markets. So the retailers don't have to think of the burden of understanding how last year compares to this year, or what does this disruption mean. We're embedding that intelligence in the tool, so it's all ready for you to consume.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question, and I think we have it here even in the queue, is kind of, you don't have a lot of data to go from domestically. So, you know, how helpful is it, and kind of what are you learning, and kind of now that we're getting, I guess, into a couple of weeks, you have a couple of weeks, but you're not really looking at last year since it's so different. And I think there's some question, that's really interesting from our perspective. I think folks are interested in that.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the whole points is this is why we kind of use it from a simulation standpoint. What we do recognize is there are going to be limits about what you can do from a predictive standpoint, given this disruption. We do learn from the openings that we've seen in other parts of the world, but you have to be careful because even that learning may or may not be applicable to individual markets here or individual retailers here. So really what we do is try and establish a baseline and then look at the deltas off that baseline in terms of understanding magnitude, cost, and urgency. It was really a way to address, let's call it the kind of known unknowns that we have in the situation that we're involved with.